I think we will move on to our next and final speaker now, Katie Shoemark from Carers Australia, who will be presenting on caring through COVID-19 on behalf of her colleague, Corinne Broughton. So I'll hand over to Katie now. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thanks, Grace, and hi. So yes, if you've read the program and you're expecting Corinne, I'm sorry, she's unwell today, so you've got me instead. My name is Katie Shoemark, and my pronouns are she, they, and I work across the policy and programs teams at Carers Australia. I'm also going to pre-apologise that my cat might walk across the screen. He is named Pepperoni. Can I grab the next slide, please? So to begin, I acknowledge and celebrate the traditional owners of the many lands that everyone is joining on today for this virtual conference. So I live on, work on, and enjoy the lands, waterways, and skies of the Ngunnawal and Ngambri peoples. And I really want to pay my respects to elders and knowledge holders, past, present, emerging, for their custodianship and resilient continuation of culture. And obviously, I extend this respect and gratitude to all elders and knowledge holders and Indigenous people present. We stand with Indigenous community members saying always was, always will be. Next slide, please. So firstly, a big thank you, like others have said, to Carers New South Wales to inviting us to participate in today. It is a really great way to celebrate the beginning of Mental Health Month and the countdown to National Carers Week. So Carers Australia will be launching National Carers Week on Sunday, which is a time to recognise and celebrate the 2.65 million unpaid carers in Australia. The Carers Australia team has a range of national events planned alongside the brilliant state-based programs and events being delivered by Carers New South Wales. So for more information about National Carers Week, you can head either to our Facebook or Carers New South Wales Facebook. And just quickly about me, I've been with Carers Australia for a couple of months now, and I'm really grateful to work for an organisation that aligns with my personal values and experiences. So I wear a range of identity hats, like many of us do. I live with complex mental illness and physical disability. I receive unpaid care and I provide unpaid care. So I was really excited to manage and deliver this Caring Through COVID project, as it aligns with both my lived experience and the project design included a couple of particularly exciting elements compared to the standard government contracts. So can I grab the next slide to tell you a little bit about the Caring Through COVID project? So it is a bit of a mouthful. We also call it CTC. Carers Australia partnered with Mental Health Australia and Mental Health Carers Australia to deliver this project. So Katrina, who you've just heard from, was involved, and we're very grateful for her and her organisation's involvement. And it was a project funded by the Department of Health through the National Mental Health and Wellbeing Pandemic Response Plan, which came out May last year. I've lost concept of time, but this was also in addition to the release of $3 million to the Carer Gateway. And so, as you've just heard from Katrina and Sue, that we know that carers of people living with mental illness or psychosocial disability have higher levels of psychological distress themselves and have poorer health outcomes overall. And of course, this was further compounded by the distress of COVID. And we know that all carers are extremely resilient people, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be focusing on our own well-being. So the Caring Through COVID project is a multi-platform project using storytelling, community building, and toolbox creation to sort of seek to improve the well-being of carers of people living with mental illness or psychosocial disability. So as part of that, the project really encouraged carers to connect with other carers, self-assess and monitor their own well-being, and take part in and engage with a variety of online resources which promote self-care and well-being. So there was 4 major elements of the project: Caring Through COVID social media campaign, access to the personal wellbeing assessment tool, which some carers have used in the past and is an international standard for collecting wellbeing data. And then the 2 quite novel parts of our project, which is an online mindfulness course and a 5 8-part podcast series. So can I have that next slide, please? And I will tell you a little bit more about the online mindfulness program. So a lot of people think that self-care and mindfulness have a big branding problem, and I'm one of those. So I have lots of friends and family members and colleagues who are very skeptical about the benefits of meditation and mindfulness, because it's often sort of given as a band-aid solution to a lot of consumers and carers. However, there is actually quite a lot of national and global research that shows that evidence-based mindfulness programs do contribute to better wellbeing outcomes. So with that in mind, Carers Australia partnered with a mental health social worker who's trained in mindfulness to design the mindfulness course alongside carers and carer advisors, so that we could really sort of work through that problem of what's wrong with mainstream mindfulness that's really not appealing to people, and especially carers, to engage. How do we work on that sort of PR issue around things that actually can really improve your life, and what actually are the topics and practices that would be most useful and beneficial for carers. And so as part of this, we heard really strongly that different modes of access to the course would be extremely useful. So there's both carers who valued having live online sessions so that they could connect together, speak with other carers, speak with the facilitator. However, recognizing that very busy and chaotic and unpredictable lives means that you can't always make it to the live session, no matter how much you want to make it. And so in recognition of that, we worked with the facilitator to do full professional recordings of these sessions, so that if a carer misses a session, loved a session and wants to redo it, wanted to do a practice, they can go back and revisit this on the website. As for the topics, we again heard really clearly that sleep and dropping into rest is extremely key for carers, as well as what to do when you're trying to use mindfulness in an already stressful situation. A lot of mindfulness practices assume that you can go and sit in a corner and make some tea and have a blanket and have a very serene, uninterrupted experience. And while that sounds lovely, it's just not the reality for most carers. And so people are participating, listening in cars, waiting for people to finish appointments, all sorts of things. So we really wanted to capture that mixed mode. And unsurprisingly, our carer advisors were correct. We've seen pretty similar uptakes across the live sessions, as well as the on-demand sessions, which are accessible on our website. Something that was really exciting about that is we were able to do this flexibility change within our funding contract. There was enough flexibility in our head contract from the department that we were able to be really responsive to the input and feedback, and do actual proper collaboration with our carer advisors to achieve what would really be useful, rather than some programs that feel a little bit more like box ticking exercises. So the genuineness and the real connection between carers has always been the focus of the mindfulness session. The other thing that we heard was to split the sessions out. So we had a series 1 and a series 2. Again, that was for people whose lives got in the way, needed to do other things, wanted to come back and take it up in the second time, wanted to repeat. And what we actually found is quite a few carers loved series 1 so much that they were messaging all of their carer group chats saying, oh my goodness, you have to sign up for season 2. And so that was really lovely feedback, that our carers who participated got such value that they were kind of organically spreading the word. And again, we could see that the mindfulness recordings on the weeks where we didn't have sessions, they were starting to peak. So again, really high engagement from all of the carers who participated. And then finally, one thing that is really missing from a lot of mainstream mindfulness programs is accessibility. it's kind of 101 in our sector. And so it's something that we really wanted to bring to the forefront. So again, we were able to be flexible in the use of funding and do full on Auslan translations of these practices. So now we have a really, really in-depth resource that's been collaborated with carers, reiterated with the carers that went through us with Series 1 and Series 2. And then we've been able to have that professionally translated into Auslan so that our deaf and hard of hearing carers and consumers in many ways will still be able to access this. Can I have the next slide, please? So a little bit about our podcast. We were very excited to share the name with our friends here at Carers New South Wales. We're very happy that they wanted to take that on because it really, the name encapsulates sort of the commonly invisible work of mental health carers in the pre-pandemic world and especially during COVID. So our podcast is a 5-part series, and each episode is a deep dive into the life of a mental health carer. So it's highlighting their experiences on supporting their loved ones and the other people they care for, what the additional pressures of COVID were that my colleagues have spoken to just before now, when and how people started identifying as carers, because that was a theme that we have heard, is that the pandemic was actually the first time that a lot of people who are in caring roles were saying, oh, actually, that is my identity, that there is a word to describe my experiences. And perhaps more importantly, there's a huge community of people who do have similar experiences to me. And while every carer is unique, there is such a strength in community and finding shared experiences. So that was, again, what we really wanted to capture through the podcast and through the mindfulness. And so at the beginning, we set ourselves a conservative target of 500 listens, which is 100 per episode. I'm not a podcast gal, but that felt like a lot. And then I'm extremely excited to say that I checked our back end this morning. We're actually hit 2,200 listens since we launched in the end of August. So that's a phenomenal uptake. And it's actually been listened to across 15 countries. So it's not just here in Australia that our podcast is reaching. So I'll get the next slide, please. And so what's next? The project has formally concluded. However, the value and richness of the resources that were created through it, near all of the carers that we interacted with were saying, please, 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 please don't pull this down the day that the project is done. We like listening to these. We had a couple of carers saying that they listened to the bonus practice, which is a 10-minute long dropping into rest practice, saying that they were using that every night to fall asleep for a week. And so we've actually worked to build a new page that is the landing page on our website that sets out all of the different mindfulness sessions, their cut down practices, the Auslan translations that go alongside these, if that's how you prefer to receive your media, and a range of resources in PDFs and other accessible formats so that people who prefer visual aids alongside listening can still engage that way. And so those will be on our Carers Australia website for quite a while to come under our COVID-19 page. So if anything that I've said to you has sparked your interest, I really encourage you to jump on there and take a look and maybe even take a listen. As for the podcast, again, we're going to leave it up. So if you wanted to take a listen to that one, it is available on all major podcasting platforms. Just like the title of the conference, just search Secret Life of Carers and it'll come up for you. And very excitingly, we have been able to secure funding to run a second season of this podcast. So the second season will actually be focusing on carers of people who've been involved in an early childhood, early intervention experience. So we're actually still recruiting carers for that one. So if you're a carer listening to this and you're either currently going through an ECEI intervention or have previously and want to tell us about where you are now and how that worked for you and did it change things, we would love to hear from you and get you involved in that one. So if you pop over to our final slide, please. This is how to get in contact with us. So we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, you can email us, you can call us. We love being contacted. I will just give a shout out there. Our Instagram is for the Young Carers Network, and we are currently running the Young Carers Bursary through that, which is another phenomenal program that we are able to run with government support. So I'll cap it off there and see if Grace has got any questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Katie, and congratulations on such a successful project, but also so many listens to your podcast. It's wonderful to hear that so many people are tuning in. I'm really pleased to say that we did actually receive a question. I've started for you, and you should be able to access that if you can. But if not, I can just quickly read it out to you. And while Katie's doing that, if anyone else has any other questions, please feel free to leave them in the live Q&A box. If we can't also get to your question, I know there were some that came through from previous sessions, we will export all of the questions and have our speakers also try and respond to them offline once the session has concluded. But Katie, are you ready to answer the question that just come through?
I actually can't see that one. Where I've got it's loading. We're sitting in loading. So could you read that one for me, please, Grace?
Not a problem. Not a problem. So basically, someone asked that whether the online mindfulness podcasts and the mindfulness project can be accessed by carers who are not supporting someone with mental health or mental ill health, as they noted that all carers may like to try mindfulness.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something that we did find. Quite a few carers were asking us, I've got carers in my network, but they don't have the same kind of caring role as I do. Can they come along? And with the online sessions, they were live, but they were online, so you don't really have a huge cap on the number. So for our second series, we said, come along. So yes, the answer is absolutely. The live sessions are done because the project has completed, but the resources that are online, they are tailored to carers of people living with mental illness or psychosocial disability, but they are evidence-based practices, and especially, I believe it's session 5, which is self-compassion for carers, and that is based on sort of world-leading research into how the experiences of a carer is different. And so that session is really focused on any carer and any sort of caring experience, but you can absolutely listen to the whole program and it will still be suitable for all carers.
Wonderful. We also had another question come through, and I know that you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, how the next iteration of this project might focus on carers of young people entering the ECEI pathway. But we did have another question from someone in the audience asking whether you are open to other topics or using other topics for future podcasts as well.
Certainly, we're very open to that. I mean, I guess the answer is whether we can work with government to find some money so that we can continue there. As a lot of us know in this sector, we're running on fairly shoestring budgets, so we do need that sort of government support. So if there's any government folks listening, we've got plenty of topics and ideas, and we'd love to do some more work, especially given how successful and well received these podcasts and mindfulness sessions have been. So absolutely, yes, love to hear your ideas, but we'll work through the practicalities in the future.
Wonderful. And we have also received a third question in the last few moments. And I know that you kind of briefly touched on the mindfulness project and what that kind of involves. But we did have someone ask if you could tell us a little bit more about the specific resources that you have developed in line with the project as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So the resources that I mentioned and this new landing page that will have all of our mindfulness content in there is launching for National Carers as part of National Carers Week. So from the weekend, it will be available. And so those resources are designed in complement to the live sessions and the PowerPoint and visual aids that our facilitator developed. So there was some examples of, if you have done mindfulness before, there is a stop practice as well as sort of different breath count practices. And we got feedback from carers that actually, could we grab that? Could we grab that on a postcard? We went, we could put that on a postcard, sure thing. So there's quite a few resources that are about to go live over the weekend that exactly that, the visual aids to go alongside the exercises that you're listening to. Again, if you do listen to those and say, oh, I'd really like that thing down, we do still have a bit of flexibility and can work with our facilitator and hopefully put something together.